إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد، عباد الله، فمن يرى أو ينظر إلى حالنا اليوم يرى أن العالم كله أصبح كمدينة واحدة. أصبحنا كلنا متقاربين من بعض، ووسائل التواصل تقربنا من بعض، والخبر من أنحاء الأرض يصل إليك في ثواني. هذا أمر جيد، ولكنه مخيف بنفس الوقت، ويذكرنا بمسؤوليات علينا أن نحققها. فقد قال النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم: مثل المؤمنين في توادهم وتراحمهم وتعاطفهم كمثل الجسد الواحد، إن اشتكى منه عضو تداعى له سائر الجسد بالسهر والحمى. فلينظر أحدنا إذا مرض أو آذاك إصبع من أصابعك تتعب، أو إذا مرضت وارتفعت حرارتك جسمك كله يتعب، رغم أن الألم في مكان واحد، ولكن الجسم كله يتعب لهذا الألم. فكما نحن هكذا يأمرنا النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أن نكون كذلك مع الأمة الإسلامية، أنه إذا أوذي مسلم أن نحس نحن بإيذائه، أن نحس نحن بالألم الذي هو يمر فيه، وأن نحاول أن نرفع عنه هذا الألم. وبما نحن الآن كمدينة واحدة، فإذا أوذي مسلم في شرق الأرض علينا نحن أن نحاول أن نرفع عنه هذا الألم، وأن نحس بالألم الذي يمر به. وأردنا أن نتكلم اليوم عن موضوع الإيغور المسلمين في جنوب تركستان، أو في دولة الصين حاليا. فهؤلاء الآن مسلمون مضطهدون، والحكومة تضيق عليهم وتقتلهم وتحاول أن تبدل دينهم، ونحن هنا لا نتأثر، أو نحن هنا لا يغير حياتنا اليومية، ولكن علينا أن نحس بالألم الذي يمرون به، وعلينا أن ننصرهم كما أمرنا النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. فقد قال النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم: من رأى منكم منكرا بيده من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده، فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه، فإن لم يستطع فبقلبه، وذلك أضعف الإيمان. المنكر إن رأيته تحاول أن تغيره بيدك، ثم إن اليد واللسان والقلب هذا التسلسل العامي عامة. المنكر يغير بهذه الطريقة، ولكن في أحيان قد يغير المنكر باللسان أقوى. تغيير المنكر باللسان يكون أقوى من تغييره باليد. فلننظر إلى حالنا اليوم، وماذا نستطيع أن نقدم، وماذا نستطيع أن نغير من هذا المنكر الذي يحصل. نعم، لا نستطيع أن نذهب إلى هناك ونغيره، ولكن نستطيع بألسنتنا، نستطيع بالكلام الذي نكتبه، نستطيع بالتوعية التي نوعي الناس عن هذا أن نعلم الناس عن هذا الأمر، فنحاول أن نغير المنكر، ونعلم أن الله سبحانه وتعالى سيسألنا عن ذلك. ولا نقول لا أستطيع تغيير شيء، حتى إن علمت أن كل ما ستفعله لن يغير شيئا فعليك أن تعمل. ولتذكر أصحاب السبت وماذا حصل لهم، وماذا قال الله سبحانه وتعالى عنهم: إذ قالت أمة منهم لم تعظون قوما الله مهلكهم أو معذبهم عذابا شديدا قالوا معذرة إلى ربكم ولعلهم يتقون. يعني نحن نحذرهم فقط لنعتذر أمام الله سبحانه وتعالى، ليكون لنا عذر أمام الله سبحانه وتعالى. فهذه المجموعة فكانت مجموعة تصيد يوم أو تضع الشباك يوم الجمعة وتأخذه يوم الأحد لكي لا يصيدوا يوم السبت، وهم يعرفون أن هذه حيلة أمام الله سبحانه وتعالى. فهذه المجموعة الظالمة. ثم أتت مجموعة ثانية لا تفعل ذلك، فهذه المجموعة انقسمت إلى اثنين، قسم ينهون عن السوء، وقسم قالوا لهم لم تعظون قوما الله مهلكهم أو معذبهم عذابا شديدا، قالوا معذرة إلى ربكم ولعلهم يتقون، فأنجينا الذين فلما نسوا ما ذكروا به أنجينا الذين ينهون عن السوء. الله سبحانه وتعالى أنجى الذين نهوا عن السوء، وأخذنا الذين ظلموا بعذاب بئيس بما كانوا يفسقون. الله سبحانه وتعالى جمع الذين كانوا يصيدون يوم السبت والذين لم ينهوهم عن هذا، جمعهم جميعا بكلمة الظالمين. فعلينا أن لا نكون من الظالمين، وعلينا أن ننصر إخوتنا بأي وسيلة أمامنا. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه غفور رحيم. بسم الله الحمد لله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أما بعد. All praise are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise Him, we seek His assistance, and we seek His forgiveness. We seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the evils of our souls, and we seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the evils of our actions. Whomsoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides, no one can misguide, and whomsoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leaves astray, no one can guide. And I bear witness that there is none worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is his final messenger. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, O you who believe, fear Allah as He should be feared, have taqwa of Allah, and do not die unless upon the state of Islam. We spoke in the first khutbah about the Uyghur Muslims who are being persecuted at the moment in the east of Turkestan, in a region called Xinjiang in China, and how it is our responsibility to try and help them. And what is happening in fact is that many of the masajid today are dedicating the khutbah on this topic, so that we can have a unified response. And that's what Muslims need to do. We need to be unified. We need to unify our responses to these things, because if one person tries to do it by himself, the effect may not be felt. But when Muslims together try to unify and have a unified response, that's when it becomes more effective. So by the will of Allah, there will be a campaign starting to raise more awareness for the situation, on this situation, and try to alleviate the suffering of the Muslims. On the 1st of July, inshallah, the campaign, the Stand for Uyghur campaign will be launched. And when that campaign will be launched, we will find more ways on how we can help them. It's not just raising awareness. You can speak to your MPs. There are many other methods that a person can do to try and raise awareness, and by the will of Allah, we will find out more information then. And there will also be a protest outside the Chinese embassy between 5 to 8 p.m. on Thursday, the 1st of July, when the campaign for Stand for Uyghurs will be launched by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we need to see it as our responsibility to participate in such events, and that it is our duty to do so. It's not something that we are doing just to help them, we are doing to save ourselves. And that's how we need to see it, that I am doing this to save myself. Just like those people of Banu Israel, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called them wrongdoers, called them zalimeen, because they didn't stand up against oppression, or they didn't forbid the evil. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considered them as oppressors, as wrongdoers. If we see evil before us and we don't stand up against it, and we don't speak up against it, then we may be considered from those who are the evildoers. We may be held to account for this. And that's why the Muslims becoming as a global, or the whole world becoming as a global village, yes, it's nice to have good communication, but it's a massive responsibility upon us. And it's actually a much riskier situation for us now, because before, when Muslims would be persecuted, the others wouldn't hear about it until months later, and there's nothing they can do about it. But now we hear about it immediately, and therefore we are held to account immediately, and we are held responsible immediately, and our response should be immediate as well. So it's very important for us to note this information and make sure that we respond to such persecutions and try to alleviate the suffering that Muslims face and try to lift the suffering from them. From the things that we can also try to do, and this is very, very important, is to make dua for them. Sometimes we belittle the dua that we make, not realizing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do anything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He can wipe nations with a blink of an eye. Just a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can wipe a whole nation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the power to do all things. And therefore we need to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And not belittle the dua that we make, and realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be at our assistance. And realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be there for us. And realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the ability to alleviate the suffering. So, inshallah, let's try and make sure that we have a unified response. Speak to those who are around you. Let them know about the situation. Allow them to give them methods to alleviate the suffering. And don't be like the people of the past. And this is something that's important. People of the past, or learn from the past. We see what's happening now, and we think that this is the worst. The Muslims are in the worst state that they are in. And we've heard this many times before. People say Muslims nowadays are in the worst situation they have been in the whole of history. Whereas when we look in the history, Muslims have been in much worse situations. Muslims have, if you look at the Tatar and what happened, Muslims have been in much, much worse situations. Millions massacred. Cities wiped away. And yet the Muslims rose up again and came back strong again. So don't think that this is the end and let's just wait. And the problem is sometimes people think this is the end, let's wait for Al-Mahdi. And we won't do anything. When the Mahdi comes, nothing will save us except the Mahdi. And this is in fact, people of the past used to say this, and look what happened. No, they were wrong to think that Al-Mahdi would save them. In fact, by them acting and by them standing up to oppression, they were able to alleviate the suffering. So let's not be the same and say, let's wait for Mahdi to come and he will save us. No, we need to act. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge you upon what you have done. And don't think that I can't, or maybe there are no results, or I won't see the results. Many Muslims fought so hard and they didn't see the results of their actions. But their actions did not go unnoticed. Think of Nuruddin, who was like a spiritual leader for Salah ad-Din. He did so much, but he didn't see the opening of Al-Quds. He didn't see the liberation of Palestine. But his work did not go unnoticed. Did not go unnoticed by the humans, and of course did not go unnoticed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So try and do your part. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to ask you for the results. And that's the important thing that we need to take from here, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to ask you for the result. Did you liberate Palestine? Did you make sure that the Uyghurs are saved? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks you, what did you do? What did you yourself do? You Muhammad, you Abdullah, what did you do? That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to ask you. You are held to account for what you have done. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask you about that. So make sure you have a response. Make sure you have an excuse. Like the people of Banu Israel, they said, مَعْذِرَةً إِلَىٰ رَبِّكُمْ وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. We're doing this, we're telling people to stop the evil just so that we have an excuse with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we need to make sure we prepare an excuse before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We prepare a valid excuse before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the suffering that is happening, for our response to that suffering, and making sure that we come out of this safely. And that's the fears, because of so much calamities that the Muslims go through. Their response to that calamity is to be patient. The Uyghur Muslims, their response to the calamity that's happening to them is to be patient. And that's how they are saved. What about our response? If we stay quiet, then we're not saved. If we don't do anything, then we are not saved. So we are facing a trial as well, although we may not see it. We ourselves are facing a trial and an affliction, and we need to prepare a response for this trial and affliction. And this is a hidden trial and a hidden affliction, and it is harder than just, it is harder to respond to this and make sure that you find the correct response. The Uyghur Muslims just need to be patient. You need to find ways of trying to alleviate the suffering and making sure you have a response before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to alleviate the suffering. اللهم إنا نسألك بأسمائك الحسنى وصفاتك العلى اللهم يا رحمن يا رحيم اللهم يا رحمن يا رحيم، اللهم يا رحمن يا رحيم. اللهم الطف بأهلنا الأويغر، اللهم الطف بهم، اللهم الطف بهم، اللهم ارحمهم برحماتك، اللهم ارحمهم برحماتك، اللهم ارفع البلاء عنهم، اللهم ارفع البلاء عنهم، اللهم ارفع البلاء عنهم. واللهم لا تكتبنا ممن خذلهم، اللهم لا تكتبنا ممن خذلهم.